Ready.
Alright, we're going to do our opening statement on the trailer. I'm going to check all my lights. They are amber to the front and sides of my tractor and trailer. They are red to the rear of my tractor and trailer. They are all clean, not cracked, broken, or missing any pieces. Examiner, would you please help me check the function of my lights? After you said your opening statement, we're going to start with the header board or bulkhead. I'm going to check my header board or bulkhead. It is not cracked, broken, bulging out. It does not have any bubbling, or does not have any big holes or cracks in it. It looks like it will carry the load. It looks like it will not leak. Also, all bolts and rivets are present and tight, and it's tight at the seams. I will check the front and I'll check the side the same way they did the front of my bulkhead. My sides are not cracked, broken, no holes, it's not bubbling or bulging out. It looks like it will carry the load. All rivets are present and tight on the sides of my tractor and trailer, or my trailer. I'm also going to check, and none of my rivets are missing. I'm going to check my DOT tape, make sure my DOT tape is securely mounted down the sides of my trailer. It is not cut, ripped, torn, no parts or pieces missing from it. Okay? Now, I did forget one thing. I am going to check my clearance light up front. If you want to, you can say it's amber in color, but that's all. You don't have to even say that. I'm just going to check my clearance light. Make sure you don't give condition if you give your opening statement. If you give condition on one, it voids it, and you have to give condition on all. Brings me to my landing gear. I'm going to check my landing gear. Make sure that my foot is in the full raised upright position. The handle is stowed in the cradle in the lock position. I'm going to check my bracing here, and I'm going to check my bracing going across. Make sure that all bolts are present and tight. None of those are missing. The bracing is all straight, not bent, twisted, or cracked, and none of the welds are broke on my cross members. Okay. Now I usually start here to show this. This is my cross members, or my ribs. I'm going to check them all the way down the trailer, so just point like that. Make sure that they're straight, not bent, twisted, or cracked. None of them are missing. All the bolts are present on the side, and all the screws are present holding the floor down to them. Now, if you're on this side of the trailer, and I just keep you on one side, I've got a left, a four-way, and a clearance light. If I don't walk to the other side to keep me on one side, I have a right, clearance, and four-way on the other side. Okay? Now, you can crawl under right now, or what I like to do so I don't miss them, I like to go ahead and say my ABS light and my side marker light. That way it gets those, and then I get underneath there. Also, it's not DOT, but it's not bad to know this. Your tie back, and then your chain on your doors in the back, and we'll see that here in a minute. Alright, now we're going to get underneath here. We're going to check our air hose and our electrical line. Make sure that they're securely mounted at both ends. I'm also going to check that the springs are in place and holding the line up above the axle height. Okay, and that's so when you slide your tandems on your trailer, that when you slide them, this is going to move back and forth, and you don't want this drooping down below the axle height to where it could drag and rip or tear on the ground. Also on this, I'm going to make sure it's not cut, ripped, torn, or with the brakes released, it's not leaking on my air hose. My electrical line is not cut, ripped, torn, no chunks or pieces missing from the coating, and there's no melting in the cord. There's no bare, shiny metal on any of the wiring indicating a short. Okay? Now, you want to get underneath all these trailers, guys. Some of these trailers have U-bolts like this one does. Some of them are welded solid. Some of them just have air ride, they don't have spring. Some of them have torque arms, some of them don't. So just look under each trailer in case they are different. This one here, the release arm's in the front. Some of these trailers are in the middle. Okay, so I'm going to start looking at all my parts here. I'm going to check my brake chamber, make sure my brake chambers are securely mounted. All bolts are present and tight. They're not cracked, broken, or dented. And the clamp is in place, the nut and bolt holding the clamp on, everything is tight. I'm also going to check my brake hoses going to my brake chamber, that they are securely mounted on both ends. They are not cut, ripped, torn, or with the brakes released, leaking any air. I'm going to check my slack adjuster and push rod, which you can't really see with their back behind the brake chamber. My push rod is straight, not bent, twisted, or cracked. It is held together to my slack adjuster with a pin and cotter pin, which are in place. With the brakes released, there's no more than 1 inch of travel. Okay. Now I'm going to go to these real quick, just so I don't miss it. I'm going to check my shock absorbers right here. My shock absorbers are mounted at top and bottom. All bolts are present and tight. They are straight, not bent, twisted, or cracked, and not leaking any fluid. Some of these trailers have 2, some have just 1 in the center. Okay. My airbags are securely mounted at top and bottom. They are fully inflated. They are not cracked, ripped, torn, not bubbling or bulging out. The hoses on those are connected at both ends and not cut, ripped, torn, or leaking any air. Now, we're going to check our our spring hangers. Make sure that our spring hangers are straight, not bent, twisted, or cracked, and none of the welds are cracked or broken on our spring hangers, our spring mounts. We have one spring here. Our spring is straight, not bent, twisted, or cracked. No illegal welds. It is not scissoring out. No parts or pieces missing from it. It is held onto our axle with 2 U-bolts. U-bolts are in place. They are tight. All bolts are present and tight. If the U-bolt were loose, you would see shiny metal or shavings where it's sliding back and forth. Also, the U-bolt itself is not cracked, broken, or twisted. Now, this tractor trailer has torque arms on it. Some of them do, some of them don't. And some of them are in different places. The torque arms are straight, not bent, twisted, or cracked. All bolts are present and tight, holding the torque arm on. There's no shiny metal or shavings in the joints. If there was, it would indicate wear in the bushing. You don't want to see the bushing ripped, torn, or pushing loose. Alright, here I'm going to check my brake pads and drum. My brake pads are securely mounted. All bolts are present and tight. The brake pads are not cracked, torn, or cut, or missing any pieces. They are not worn, dangerously thin. So they're not cracked, broken, or missing any pieces, and not worn, dangerously thin. There is no contaminants on my brake pads or drum, such as grease and oil. My drums are not cracked, broken, missing any pieces, no illegal welds. They are not worn, dangerously thin, or excessively grooved. Okay? Now, we'll step out from underneath here. Make sure that my tires, I'm going to check my bud wheel spacing real quick. I'm going to check my bud wheel spacing, make sure that my 2 rims are butted up tight to each other. They are not, no foreign debris in between here, such as asphalt or concrete that could fly out and hit a car. I'm going to check my tires, make sure that my tires are not cut, ripped, torn, bubbling, or bulging. No nails or screws in the sidewalls. My tread is evenly worn across the top. It is no less than
2/32 of an inch.
2/32 seconds. It is not cut, ripped, torn. No chunks or pieces missing from my tread, and no nails or screws in my tread. To get your IDC, inflation, depth, and condition, I'm going to check my valve stem. My valve stem is straight, not bent. Cap is in place. And if I need to add air here, I could, or check it with a tire gauge. I'm going to check my rim, make sure that my rim is securely mounted. It is not cracked, broken, dented, no illegal welds. If you want to know if it's cracked, it'll be from hole to hole, hole to lug nut, or lug nut to lug nut. That's not DOT required, but if you want to know it, you can. I'm going to check all my lug nuts, make sure that they're all present, they're not cracked or broken, and there's no rust trail, which indicates loose lug nut. I'm going to check my hub axle seal, make sure that my hub axle seal, all the bolts are present and tight. It is not cracked, broken, or leaking any oil. And if I wanted to add oil, I could add oil here by pulling this plug out, and I would add it between the add and full mark on the side glass. Now, I'm going to check my tandem slide rails and my frame. I'm going to make sure this frame is straight, not bent or twisted. None of the welds are cracked or broken. I'm going to check my 2 pins, one here and one there, is in the lock position, and the handle up front is in the lock position. I'm going to check these brackets, front and back, make sure that the brackets are securely mounted, the brackets are not cracked, broken, or dented, and all bolts are present and tight. And then the sliding frame itself is straight, not bent or twisted. Alright. I'm going to check my mud flap. Make sure my mud flap is securely mounted. It is raised up off the ground. The mud flap is not cracked, broken, missing any pieces. It's securely mounted with all bolts are present and tight. And we'll finish the rest of this after lunch. Alright, so the mud flap, we're going to come around the back, and we're going to go to the doors. I'm going to check the door hinges from top to bottom. Make sure they are securely mounted. All the bolts are present and tight. None of those are missing. None of the door brackets or hinges are cracked, or any of the welds are cracked or broken. Also going to check for excessive wear in the pins to make sure that when the door is shut, that they don't droop, which would cause them not to shut and open and close properly. Not DOT, but you're going to check to make sure that the doors aren't cracked or broken or bulging out. If they are, and be careful because the load's probably shifted to come when you open the doors. It could fall out and hit you. That's not DOT, but it's useful information. I'm going to check my latches, make sure it is latched at top and bottom, and make sure that the handle is in the lock position and the safety latch is in place. I'm also going to check my DOT tape on my door and my bumper. Make sure that it is securely mounted. It is not cut, ripped, torn. No parts or pieces are ripping loose from it. This is not DOT required, but good to know. Check your door tie back. Make sure it's not cracked, broken, or missing. So when you need to tie your doors back, this works properly. I forgot, hang on. Now, I need to check my lights back here. I've got a left, a right, a 4-way, brake light, tail light, and there's 3 clearance lights across the top up there, okay? Some of these trailers need to check, because the clearance lights will be down here somewhere, okay? If they come around to this side of the truck, I've got a side marker light right here. I've got a right 4-way in clearance. And I will end up here with a clearance light up top. That concludes my trailer portion of my pre-trip.